Hello friends. For today's video, I'm going to be going through a list of some anticipated releases for the month of June, specifically some anticipated fantasy releases, although this particular month, a lot of the books feel very much like hybrid genres in that they have fantasy elements to them, but then some of them feel like they're mixed with science fiction dystopian, some of them feel like they're mixed with almost mystery detective style of story. Some of them feel like steampunk. So I'm kind of excited to see such an interesting mix of books for the month of June. That said, a lot of these are ones that I don't think I had on my radar until I actually did this research. I think a lot of times, even without trying, you hear about certain anticipated releases. Everybody will start talking about them. You see them all over social media. But these ones, when I do these, I have those kinds that you tend to already know about, and then I'll go through things like NetGalley and publisher websites, and it feels like for basically all the ones on this list, I was getting these from those other places. I didn't feel like I had pretty much any of these on my radar, so hopefully these will be ones that you really haven't heard too much about, and that maybe this will be helpful in letting you know. I mean, hopefully all of the anticipated releases are helpful in letting you know about books that are coming out, but I digress. Anyway, starting with June 1st, as always, I will go in order of projected release date. I will have all these in the description bar down below, but starting with June 1st, the first two, we have Shanghai Immortal, and then the next one's kind of a mouthful. It's the Galactic Zookeeper's Guide to Heists and Husbandry. That one sounds really fun, but I'll start with Shanghai Immortal. I believe this one might end up in some book boxes. So the setup for this one, it says, this richly told adult fantasy debut teams with Chinese deities and demons cavorting in Jazz Age Shanghai. Already sounds really, really cool. Pawned by her mother to the King of Hell as a child, Lady Jing is half vampire, half Holy Jing fox spirit. As the king's ward, she has spent the past 90 years running errands, dodging the taunts of the spiteful Holy Jing courtiers, and trying to control her explosive temper with varying levels of success. So when Jing overhears the courtiers plotting to steal a priceless dragon pearl from the king, she seizes her chance to expose them once and for all. With the help of a gentle mortal tasked with setting up the central bank of hell, Jing embarks on a wild chase for intel, first through hell and then mortal Shanghai. But when her hijinks put the mortal in danger, she must decide which is more important, avenging her loss of face or letting go of her half-empty approach to life for a chance to experience tenderness and maybe even love. So that one sounds like it's going to be kind of quirky, kind of fun. Seems like the main character is going to be a little bit mischievous. Speaking of fun, next up we have the one with the really long title, The Galactic Zookeeper's Guide to Heists and Husbandry. If I read this and end up liking it, I have to figure out a shorter. I'll just say The Galactic Guide, the Zookeeper, The Galactic Zookeeper. I don't know. I'll figure it out. The synopsis starts by saying, for 8 years, Saffron Savage has been stuck on a dilapidated zoo planet on the outskirts of the galaxy. I feel like already that character's name and the title of the book tell you this is probably going to be very cheeky and silly and funny, but the rest of the synopsis sounds also equally cheeky and funny. So continuing on, her mountains of overdue student loans make it impossible to afford the cost of living, and her sleazy coworkers force her to work demoralizing jobs on a daily basis. Desperate to escape, she hatches a scheme that might just be crazy enough to work. Steal the zoo's rare two-headed llama and sell it to the highest bidder. When the poorly planned theft lands Saffron and her stolen companion as unwitting stowaways on an outbound ship, she must pose as an animal rights activist on a mission to return the animal to its home planet. To her surprise, the ride comes with some perks, an instant chemistry with Captain Michael Reyes, and burgeoning friendships with the ship's motley, animal-loving crew. Other than the lie that's snowballing out of control, Saffron finds herself settling into this quirky ship-bound life, if only the buyer wasn't the most notorious cutthroat mob boss in the galaxy. Or there wasn't a warrant out for her arrest. The Galactic Zookeeper's Guide to Heists and Husbandry is a fast-paced space romp about second chances, rediscovering purpose, and finding family in unexpected places. So obviously this one is, I would say, more so science fiction than fantasy, but still. Sounds really, really fun, and I had to include it on the list. Switching now to June 13th. The first one we have is Combat Codes. This one might have originally been self-published, because when I was looking at the cover for it, another cover popped up. So that's usually not typical of something that's just now coming out, unless it's a UK cover, but I don't really think that's what the situation was. But anyway, the synopsis for combat codes says, in a world long ago ravaged by war, the nations have sworn an armistice never to use weapons or mass destruction again. Instead, highly skilled warriors known as Grievar Knights represent their nation's interests in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Murray Pearson was once a famed knight until he suffered a loss that crippled his homeland, but now he's on the hunt to discover the next champion. In underground and ruthless combat rings, an orphan boy called Seago is making a name for himself. Murray believes Seago has what it takes to thrive in the world's most prestigious combat academy, but first, Seago must prove himself in the vicious arenas of the underworld, and survival isn't guaranteed. I could be wrong about this, but that synopsis, some elements of it, make me think it might have some parallels to Rage of Dragons, but obviously we'll see. Next up we have another quirky one called On Earth as It Is on Television. Blaine has always been content to go along with whatever his supermom wife and television-addicted half-feral children want, but when the kids ponder skinning people to see if they're aliens and his wife announces a surprise road trip to Disney World, even steady Blaine begins to crack. Half a continent away, Heather, bored in a Malibu pool while the ships hover overhead, watches as the arrival heralds the demise of her dead-end relationship and sets her on a quest to understand herself, her accomplished and oh-so-annoying stepfamily, and why she feels so alone in a universe teeming with life. And Oliver, suddenly conscious and alert after 20 catatonic years, struggles to piece together broken memories and understand why he's following a strange cat on a westward journey and into the greatest adventure of his or anyone's lifetime. So that was kind of, some aspects of that are very much like the book White Noise by Don DeLillo, but also it just sounds so weird. I could almost not get through that synopsis because it just sounds so ridiculous. After that, we have The Surviving Sky. This one also, even within its synopsis, categorizes it as science fantasy. But regardless, jumping into the synopsis, it says, this Hindu philosophy-inspired debut science fantasy follows a husband and wife racing to save their living city and their troubled marriage, high above a jungle world besieged by cataclysmic storms. High above a jungle planet float the last refuges of humanity, plant-made civilizations held together by tradition, technology, and arcane science. In these living cities, architects are revered above anyone else. If not for their ability to psychically manipulate the architecture, the cities would plunge into the devastating earth rage storms below. Charismatic, powerful, mystical Erevan is one such architect. In his city, his word is nearly law. His abilities are his identity. But to Aliyah, his wife, they are a way for survival to be reliant on the privileged few. Like most others, she cannot manipulate the plants, and she desperately seeks change. Their marriage is already thorny. Then Erevan is accused of pushing his abilities to forbidden limits. He needs Aliyah to help clear his name. She needs him to tip the balance of rule in their society. As their paths become increasingly intertwined, deadly truths emerge, challenging everything each of them believes. That one sounds so interesting. I think that the setting sounds really cool. I like the idea of following a married couple where one of them has so much power, not just as an individual, but they dictate so much what happens within their own society. So that one I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on. The next one sounds so fun and interesting and quirky. It's called The 9 Lives of Bianca Moon. The synopsis says, murder, ghosts, and a vengeful fiancé. The 9 Lives of Bianca Moon is the perfect blend of urban fantasy, detective story, and ghostly fun. Set in the 1950s in an alternate world run by cats and dogs, the action kicks off with the mysterious murder of journalist Flint Lockwood on the streets of Greenwich Village. Junior Detective Morton Digby and his partner Detective J.B. Puddleworth launch their investigation, but must contend with Flint's feisty fiancée Bianca Moon, who is determined to take justice into her own paws. Meanwhile, Flint's ghost arrives at Ghost Hall, an abandoned courthouse now home to a band of rowdy ghosts. There he meets new friends and learns the ins and outs of being a spook. When he sets out to find Bianca, he is shocked to learn she has embarked on a reckless quest for revenge. Determined to protect her from her own feline fury, but limited by his ghostly powers, Flint must rely on Junior Detective Morton Digby and his partner to collar the killers before Bianca runs out of lives. That sounds so fun. It sounds so fun and unlike basically anything that I've come across before. Moving now to June 27th, and the last two for today, we have Runners, which is our cyberpunk one. I think I said steampunk earlier, but cyberpunk. The synopsis says, a high-octane cyberpunk thrill ride that will leave you on the edge of your seat. On the planet Nera, a world of towering metropolises powered by nanotechnology and controlled by corporations, Mr. Zahn and his misfit crew have trained for 5 years to become Omegas, the greatest and most elusive assassins on the planet. However, disillusioned with their mission, they went rogue and killed their handler, Nancy. Now they run guns to survive while racing to stay one step ahead of the living shadows that hunt them. After a tragic, traumatic attack, Zahn and his crew find themselves on the outs with Dietrich Boateng, one of the most powerful men in the planet. But when Dietrich suddenly risks everything to warn them of a new, dangerous threat, events are set in motion that threaten to spiral out of their control. To make matters worse, Deputy Marshal Akira Sudo is hot on their trail after a cover-up leads her to believe that there is more to this case than meets the eye. If they can complete Dietrich's mission, they might secure the tools they need to survive the next Omegas that show up to exact revenge. If they don't, they might not survive to see tomorrow. And then it has some big comp titles here. It says for fans of Neuromancer, Blade Runner, Ghost in a Shell, and Altered Carbon, this action-packed dystopian sci-fi romp will leave you breathless and wanting more. Last, we have Starlings, and this one says, a dark YA fantasy debut perfect for fans of House of Hollow and Small Favors. In the wake of her father's death, a teen girl discovers a side of her family she didn't know existed and is pulled into a dark and ancient bargain she is next in line to fulfill. Kit's father has always told her he had no family, but 4 months ago his sudden death revealed the truth. Now she has a grandmother she never knew she had, Agatha Starling, and an invitation to visit her father's hometown of Rosemont. And Rosemont, it's picture perfect. The famed eternal roses bloom year-round. Downtown is straight out of the 1950s. There's even a cute guy to show Kit around. The longer Kit's there, though, the stranger it all feels. The Starling family is revered, but there's something off about how the Starling women seem to be at the center of all the town's important history. There's a typo, I think. Starling women seem to be at the center of all the town's important history. Yeah, typo. I thought I was reading it wrong, because I often do. Anyway, so, and as welcoming as the locals are, Kit can't shake the feeling that everyone seems to be hiding something from her. Agatha is so happy to finally meet her only granddaughter, and the town is truly charming, but Kit can't help wondering, if everything is so great in Rosemont, why did her father ever leave? And why does it seem like he never wanted her to find it? So that one definitely sounds very interesting. I was instantly intrigued by the fact that it was compared to Small Favors, so fingers crossed that that comparison is an accurate one. But that is it for the anticipated releases for the month of June. I would love to know if there were some additional ones that I didn't mention that you are really excited for. Like I said before, I will have all of these linked in the description bar down below with their anticipated release dates or projected release dates. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.